Captain Marcus Vale wiped sweat from his forehead as he stood beside his battered cargo ship on the dusty trading post of Kepler Station. The twin suns blazed overhead, making the metal hull too hot to touch. His last job had barely covered fuel costs, and his ship needed expensive repairs he couldn't afford. When the alien merchant Vex approached him with gleaming black eyes and razor-sharp teeth, Marcus knew this wouldn't be an ordinary deal. Vex's species, the Corthoni, were known for their strange business practices and love of unusual trades. "Captain Vale," Vex hissed, his voice like grinding metal, "I have cargo that needs transport to the outer rim, very valuable, very delicate." Marcus crossed his arms. "What kind of cargo, and what's the payment?" Vex smiled, showing rows of needle-like teeth. "The cargo walks and breathes. As for payment, ... He gestured toward his ship with a clawed hand. A figure emerged from the shadows of the loading dock. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. It was a young woman, maybe 22, with striking silver hair that seemed to catch light even in the harsh desert sun. Her skin had a pale blue tint, and her eyes were the deepest violet he'd ever seen. She wore simple gray clothing that looked more like prisoner's garb than regular clothes. "This is your payment," Vex announced. "She's strong, obedient, and requires little food or water, perfect for a trader who needs reliable help." Marcus felt his stomach turn. "I don't deal in slaves." "Not a slave," Vex corrected quickly. "Indentured servant." Her previous owner had debts. Now those debts transfer to whoever takes her contract. The woman hadn't spoken a word. She stood perfectly still, eyes fixed on the ground, hands clasped. In front of her, something about her stillness bothered Marcus. It wasn't natural fear or submission. It was like she was waiting for something. "What's her name?" Marcus asked. "She answers to whatever you call her," Vex replied with a shrug. "The contract lasts 5 years. She'll work off her debts, then she's free to go wherever she pleases." Marcus studied the woman more carefully, despite her simple clothes and downcast eyes. There was something regal about the way she held herself. Her posture was too perfect, too controlled. And when she briefly looked up at him, he saw intelligence burning in those violet eyes that made him wonder what she was really thinking. "I need those credits, Vex," Marcus said finally. "But I can't take care of another person right now." "She takes care of herself," Vex insisted. "And she can help with ship repairs, cooking, cleaning. She's more valuable than credits, I promise." "You." Marcus's mechanic friend Finn emerged from beneath the ship, wiping grease from his hands. "Marcus, we really need those parts if we want to make it to the next system." The woman finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I won't cause problems." Her accent was strange, musical in a way that didn't match any human colony Marcus knew. There was something almost royal about the way she pronounced each word, despite speaking so softly. "Fine," Marcus said against his better judgment. "But this is temporary. Once I earn enough to pay off her contract, she goes free." Vex's grin widened impossibly. "Excellent choice, Captain. You won't regret this." But as Vex's ship lifted off in a cloud of dust and exhaust, Marcus was already wondering what he'd gotten himself into. The woman stood beside his cargo ramp, waiting for orders that never came. "What should I call you?" he asked gently. She looked up at him again, and for just a moment, he saw something that looked almost like hope flicker in her eyes. "Zara," she said quietly. "My name is Zara." As they walked up the ramp into his ship, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this mysterious woman was going to change his life in ways he couldn't imagine. 3 days into their journey toward the outer rim, Marcus began to notice that Zara was unlike any person he'd ever met. She moved through the ship with an almost supernatural grace, never bumping into anything despite the cramped corridors. When he gave her tasks, she completed them perfectly on the first try, even with equipment she claimed never to have seen before. "How did you know which wire to connect?" he asked, after she fixed a faulty navigation panel in under 10 minutes. Zara paused, her hand still holding the tools. I felt which one was wrong." That night, as Marcus piloted through a particularly dense asteroid field, he noticed Zara standing at the main viewport, her hand pressed against the transparent metal. The asteroids seemed to part slightly as they passed, creating a clearer path than should have been possible. Zara, he called softly. What are you doing? She pulled her hand back quickly, looking almost guilty. Nothing. Just watching the stars. But Marcus had seen enough strange things in his years as a trader to recognize when something wasn't normal. The way electronics seemed to respond better when she touched them. The way she never seemed to sleep. Just sat quietly with her eyes closed. The way she sometimes whispered in a language that sounded like music. On the 5th day, everything changed. They were docked at a small trading station for supplies. When Marcus noticed, Zara had gone very still. She was standing in the main corridor, head tilted like she was listening to something he couldn't hear. We need to leave, she said suddenly, her voice urgent. Now? What? Why? What? Marcus asked. But Zara was already moving toward the cockpit. There. Coming, she said, her calm demeanor cracking for the first time. We have to go, please. Marcus had learned to trust his instincts over the years, and right now they were screaming at him to listen to her. He ran to the cockpit and began the launch sequence, his hands flying over the controls as their ship lifted off. 3 sleek black vessels emerged from behind the station's far side. They were unlike any design Marcus had seen before, with curved hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. What are those? He asked, pushing their engines to maximum. Zara was gripping the co-pilot's chair so tightly her knuckles were white. Royal hunters, she whispered. They've found me, Royal. What? Marcus demanded. But the pursuing ships opened fire, sending plasma bolts streaking past their hull. Zara closed her eyes and pressed both hands against the control console. Suddenly, their ship's systems came alive in ways Marcus had never experienced. The engines hummed with new power, the shields strengthened, and their speed increased dramatically. How are you doing that? He shouted over the sound of weapons. Fire. I'm sorry, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. I never wanted to put you in danger. I should have told you the truth. One of the pursuing ships managed to get a target lock, and Marcus watched in horror as a massive energy weapon charged up, ready to destroy them completely. That's when Zara stood up, her entire body beginning to glow with soft silver light. She raised her hands, and Marcus felt power flowing through the ship, like electricity through his veins. A barrier of pure energy surrounded their vessel just as the weapon fired. The blast that should have vaporized them simply bounced off and scattered harmlessly into space. The 3 black ships suddenly stopped pursuing and turned away, disappearing into hyperspace as quickly as they had arrived. Marcus stared at Zara, who had collapsed back into her seat, the glow fading from her skin. What are you? She looked at him with those incredible violet eyes, and he saw centuries of sadness and loneliness there. My real name is Princess Zara Nyx of the Celestial Throne. I am the last heir to an empire that was destroyed 15 years ago. Marcus felt his world shift. The woman he'd thought was an indentured servant was actually royalty. And now he understood why those ships had been hunting her. The royal hunters work for Lord Corvin, she continued. He destroyed my family and took our worlds. As I live, I'm a threat to his rule. He's been searching for me ever since. Now he knows where you are, Marcus said quietly. Zara nodded, fresh tears falling. I'm sorry, Marcus. I never meant for you to get involved in this. Maybe you should just leave me somewhere safe and forget you ever met me. But as Marcus looked at this incredible, powerful, broken woman, he realized that forgetting her was the last thing he wanted to do. Marcus made a decision that surprised even himself. Instead of finding the nearest station to drop Zara off, he set course for the abandoned mining colony of Zarian Prime. If they were going to be hunted across the galaxy, they needed time to plan, and the dead world would give them that. As they traveled through hyperspace, Zara told him everything. Her family had ruled the Celestial Empire for over 1,000 years, maintaining peace between dozens of worlds and species. But Lord Corvin, a war chief from the brutal Vorthok clans, had built a massive fleet and launched a surprise attack. On the capital world, I was only 7 when it happened, she said. sitting beside him in the cockpit as stars streaked past. My parents hid me in an escape pod just before the palace fell. I've been running and hiding ever since. Marcus found himself studying her face as she spoke. The way her eyes caught the starlight, the graceful curve of her neck, the sadness that seemed permanently etched in her features. He was beginning to understand that his feelings for her went far beyond simple protective instincts. "So those powers you have, ... double quotes," he began. "The royal bloodline carries certain gifts," she explained. "We can sense energy patterns, communicate, with technology, even manipulate matter on a small scale. It's what allowed us to rule fairly and keep peace for so long." When they reached Zarian Prime, they set up a temporary camp in the ruins of an old mining facility. The planet's twin moons provided plenty of light, and the abandoned machinery offered good cover from any orbital scans. That night, as they sat around a small heating unit, Marcus made his intentions clear. "I'm not leaving you," he said simply. Zara looked up from the rations she'd been picking at. "Marcus, you don't understand what you're saying. Corvin won't stop until I'm dead. Anyone who helps me becomes a target." "Then we make sure he doesn't find us," Marcus replied. "The galaxy is huge. There are places we can hide, people who will help us." "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know?" Moved closer to her, close enough to see the flecks of silver in her violet eyes. "Because in the past week, you've become the most important person in my life." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zara reached out and touched his face with trembling fingers. "I haven't felt safe with anyone in 15 years, she whispered. "You're safe with me," he promised, covering her hand with his own. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, as if they were both afraid this moment might shatter if they moved too quickly. When they separated, Marcus saw something new in Zara's eyes. Not just hope, but determination. Over the next few days, they began planning not just their escape, but their future. Marcus contacted his network of smuggler friends and information brokers, looking for allies who might be willing to help a displaced princess reclaim her throne. Meanwhile, Zara began training with her abilities, pushing herself harder than she had in years. She showed Marcus how she could sense approaching ships from light years away, how she could make their vessel nearly invisible to most scanning equipment, and how she could enhance their weapons and shields far beyond their normal capabilities. With the right allies and enough time to prepare, we might actually be able to fight back, she said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the dead planet's sky in shades of gold and crimson. Marcus pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body against his. "Whatever happens, we face it together." But their peaceful planning was interrupted on the fourth night, when Zara suddenly sat bolt upright in his arms. "They're here!" she gasped. 3 ships, maybe 4, Corvin found. Us. Marcus was already reaching for his clothes and weapons. "How long do we have?" Zara's eyes were glowing faintly as she extended her senses. 20 minutes, maybe less. As they rushed to break camp and prepare their ship for launch, Marcus realized that their quiet planning phase was over. It's the real fight for Zara's life, and their future together was about to begin. The next few hours tested every skill Marcus had learned as a trader and pilot. With Zara's enhanced abilities guiding him, they managed to escape Zarian Prime just minutes before Corvin's ships arrived. But the chase that followed led them through some of the most dangerous territory in known space. They found temporary refuge in the Shattered Nebula, a region of space so filled with electromagnetic interference that most ships couldn't maintain their systems. But Zara's connection to technology allowed her to keep their vessels stable, even in the chaotic energy storms. "We can't stay here forever," Marcus said as they floated in the purple-tinged clouds of the nebula. "Eventually, they'll figure out how to track us even through this interference." Zara was sitting on the small bunk in his quarters wearing one of his old flight suits that was far too big for her. Despite everything they were facing, Marcus couldn't help thinking she looked beautiful. "There's something I haven't told you," she said quietly, "about why Corvin is so determined to find me." Marcus sat beside her, taking her hand in both of his. "What is it?" "The royal bloodline doesn't just carry powers," she explained. It carries the genetic key to an ancient weapons system. The celestial crown isn't just a symbol of authority. It's a control device that can command a network of automated defense platforms throughout the Empire. Marcus felt his blood run cold. Weapons platforms. Each one powerful enough to destroy entire fleets, Zara confirmed. My ancestors built them as a last resort to protect our worlds from invasion. But they can only be activated by someone with royal blood. And Corvin knows. This, she nodded. He's been trying to force me to activate them for him. That's why he needs me alive. With those platforms under his control, he could conquer not just our old empire, but half the galaxy. Marcus pulled her closer, feeling the weight of what she'd told him. So what do we do? I've been thinking, she said, looking up at him with those incredible eyes. What if instead of running, we try to reach the platforms first? If I could activate them and turn them against Corvin's fleet. ... It would be incredibly dangerous, Marcus said. You'd have to return to the heart of what used to be your empire. Corvin will have the entire area heavily guarded. I know, she whispered. But I'm tired of running, Marcus. I want to fight back. I want to reclaim what was stolen from my people. That night, as they drifted in the nebula's embrace, their conversation turned from strategy to more personal matters. Zara told him about her childhood in the royal palace. The gardens where she used to play, the tutors who taught her languages and history, and the responsibilities of leadership. Marcus shared stories of his own past. Growing up on a farming colony, his decision to leave home and explore the galaxy, the loneliness of a trader's life until she'd come aboard his ship. I never expected to find love in the middle of running for my life, she said, her head resting on his shoulder. I never expected to fall in love with a princess, he replied. Kissing the top of her head, their embrace became more passionate as the night wore on. Two souls finding comfort and connection in the midst of chaos. When they made love, it was with the desperate intensity of people who knew their time together might be limited, but also with the tender care of those who had found something worth fighting for. Afterward, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Zara traced patterns on Marcus's chest with her finger. If we do this, she said softly, if we try to reach the crown platforms, there's a good chance we won't survive. Marcus caught her hand and brought it to his lips. Then we'd better make sure we do survive, because I intend to spend a very long time loving you, Princess Zaranix. She smiled, the first truly happy expression he'd seen from her since they'd met. I love you too, Captain Marcus Vale. As they began planning their assault on the most heavily defended region of space in their part of the galaxy, Marcus knew that whatever happened next, this woman had changed him forever. She'd shown him that some things were worth risking everything for. 2 weeks later, they emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system, the former heart of the Celestial Empire. What had once been a thriving region of space filled with peaceful worlds and busy trade routes was now a fortress. Corvin's black ships patrolled in formation around the central planet where the Crown Platform's control center was located. 15 years? Zara whispered, staring at her former home through the view screen. It looks so different. The planet's surface was scarred with weapons installations and mining operations. The beautiful crystal spires she remembered from her childhood had been replaced with dark metal towers that rose like spears into the atmosphere. Are you ready for this? Marcus asked, his hand on hers as they prepared to begin their final approach. She squeezed his fingers and nodded. The platform should still recognize my genetic signature, if we can get close enough to the control center. Their plan was desperate but simple. Using Zara's abilities, they would make their ship appear to be nothing more than space debris, drifting toward the planet. Once they were close enough, Marcus would pilot them through the defense grid, while Zara attempted to activate the ancient weapon systems. The first part went smoothly. Zara's mastery of energy manipulation made their ship practically invisible to the patrol vessels. But as they entered the planet's atmosphere, alarms began blaring throughout Corvin's fleet. He knows I'm here, Zara said, her skin beginning to glow with that familiar silver light. He can sense royal blood just like I can sense danger. Black fighters swarmed toward them like angry insects. Marcus pushed their engines to maximum, diving through the atmosphere in a desperate race to reach the control center before they were shot down. There. Zara pointed to a massive structure at the planet's north pole. The crown chamber is at the center of that complex. They crash-landed in what had once been the palace gardens, their ship sliding to a stop just meters from the building's entrance. As they ran through corridors that Zara remembered from her childhood, the sound of pursuing footsteps echoed behind them. The crown chamber itself was exactly as she remembered it. A circular room with walls of pure crystal, and at the center, a floating platform that held an intricate crown of silver and starlight. The celestial crown, she breathed, approaching the artifact that had been worn by her ancestors for 1,000 years. But before she could reach it, the chamber doors burst open, and Lord Corvin himself strode in, flanked by a dozen armed soldiers. He was exactly what Marcus had expected from Zara's descriptions. Tall, brutally powerful, with the predatory grace of a natural killer. Princess Corvin said, his voice like grinding stone. After all these years of searching, you finally come home. This isn't your home, Zara replied, her entire body now radiating silver light. It's mine. Marcus stepped beside her, his weapon drawn, even though he knew it would be useless against so many enemies. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Corvin laughed. How touching. The lost princess and her devoted pet. But this ends now, child. You will activate the platforms for me, or I will kill everyone you care about, starting with your lover here. No, Zara said simply, and reached for the crown. The moment her fingers touched the ancient artifact, power exploded through the chamber. The crystal walls began to resonate with harmonious tones, and throughout space, dormant weapon systems that had slept for decades suddenly came online. Marcus watched in awe as Zara lifted the crown above her head. She was no longer the frightened woman he'd met on a dusty trading station. She was a queen, claiming her birthright and the power to reshape the galaxy. I am Princess Zara Nyx, she declared, her voice echoing with authority that made even Corvin's soldiers hesitate. Last heir of the celestial throne, and I command the platforms to fire. In space above them, beams of pure energy lanced out from hidden weapons platforms, striking Corvin's fleet with devastating precision. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light as the Empire's ancient defenses awakened. Corvin raised his weapon toward Marcus, but Zara's power reached out and crushed it to powder. Your reign of terror is over, she told him. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the balcony of the rebuilt palace, watching as ships from a dozen worlds approached for the coronation ceremony. The Celestial Empire was being reborn, and Zara would soon officially become its queen. Nervous? He asked as she joined him, wearing the flowing robes of state. Terrified, she admitted, but she was smiling. I never expected to rule. I just wanted to survive. You'll be an amazing queen, he said, pulling her into his arms. And I'll be right beside you. It's my husband, she said, showing him the matching ring she'd had made. If you'll have me. Marcus kissed her as the twin suns set over their reclaimed world. I'd follow you across the galaxy, Your Majesty. I already have. As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, 2 former refugees looked out over an empire reborn, knowing that their love had not only saved their lives but restored hope to countless worlds throughout the galaxy.